You guys, no! I'm having an issue with my mic. Hang on. I'll be right back. We'll be right back. Do not move. Do not move. I'm so sorry, you guys. This happened while I was cleaning the studio. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, hang on. Pause. We're gonna fix this. I know we have weird sound right now. Wait for it. How's that? Can you hear me? Is that better? Okay, thank God. I think I fixed it. Sorry. We're figuring all this out in real time. This is what happens when you don't have a team of people to help you with things, and it's just straight up you. So I hope this is plugged back in. I hope I don't sound as echoey now. As I was saying to myself, apparently, because that's just the kind of life that we are living in the studio today, we cleaned the studio all by ourselves today, deep cleaned everything, and I'm really embarrassed to admit this. It was like the first time that we deep cleaned the studio since I moved, since I put everything in here. So that's disgusting to admit. Am I disgusting and filthy? Yes. But I cleaned everything out today. It was a journey. We like deep cleaned the desk, deep cleaned the electronics, unplugged a bunch of stuff, plugged it all back in, hence why the audio was not working. My apologies, but I'm glad we got it fixed, and thank you guys for letting me know right away in the chat. Super embarrassing, but that's A-okay. That's the world of live streaming, and that's what happens when you are a team of one and you don't have a zillion people helping you in the background. LOL that you heard me screaming in the phone or in the regular microphone to my fiance in the other room. So good times, guys. Woo! Welcome to Tuesday. I hope everybody's having a great day, a great afternoon. I sure am, despite all of the stuff sitting all around me that you cannot see on the other side of the camera from deep cleaning, but it feels really good to just like get a clean slate in your house. If you haven't cleaned out your closet or cleaned your office lately, it feels so good to do that. Please take my advice and do it for yourself. It feels absolutely amazing. We are seeing finally some growth on the YouTube channel lately, which is awesome, and a little bit of growth everywhere else as well. It takes a lot longer to grow on the short or on the longer form video platforms. We're seeing a ton of growth when it comes to our content on Instagram and on TikTok in the last few months, which I know you guys have been hugely supportive of and a big part of that story, but I want to make sure we can catch up everywhere else as well. So right away, as we are getting started on the stream today, do me a huge favor, hit that heart button, the like button on whatever platform you're watching on. If you can repost. If you see a little bell, touch that button so you're always notified whenever we do go live and upload a video, hopefully when the audio is working from moment one of these streams. And in addition, please, if you haven't already, smash that follow or subscribe button on whatever platform you are watching on right now. It makes such a huge difference, every single one of you that follows and subscribes. So thank you guys so much for your help in this journey, and love seeing this community continue to grow, especially if you are new around here or you are a first-time viewer. Please introduce yourself to us in the live chat. It is super fun for us to get to know you and see where everyone is watching from all over the globe. Today is going to be a really interesting opportunity for conversation in the chat. So I want to make sure you guys are using it throughout the entirety of the stream. I want this to feel really interactive, and please do not feel like your opinion does not matter, because right here it really does. And this subject that we're covering today on the topic of abortion in the United States is arguably the most controversial issue of our time. It certainly, I believe, is the biggest human rights issue of our time. And unfortunately, despite it being front and center in our political system, in our culture, all over social media. It's one of those subjects that we rarely, if ever, are encouraged to have a dialogue about and talk about. So if you agree with something that I say today, drop it in the chat. If you disagree with something that I say today, drop it in the chat. If you ever have any questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat. But let's treat each other with respect. Let's keep an open heart and an open dialogue and really get to the nitty-gritty of this conversation that I pray and I hope to facilitate continues to grow throughout my generation and spanning across multiple generations in the United States and around the world. I know we have a ton of people who are watching internationally, so today is a little bit more America specific, but I do think the United States of America is setting the tone when it comes to how we approach the topic of abortion, what it means to be pro-abortion or anti-abortion, and what happens legally in the United States on many of these human rights issues continues to spread around the globe. So though this is a little bit up close to the United States and our policy and our politics that's going on right now, it definitely does apply to you if you are watching from another country as well. Before we jump into everything, I want to make sure we say hi to everybody, especially those who let me know my mic wasn't working right at the beginning of the stream. Super awkward and embarrassing, but that's a-okay. We've got, scrolling back up to the top, Evan on YouTube. The Fredster is watching. The Uber Bad Boy is watching on YouTube. Marky is here. Orthodox Russ is watching. Hola, Brenda. Glad you're here. Brown Rice is here. Daloon is here. Mighty is here. Rosalind's watching on Facebook. We've got... Rolling. My mom. Hi, Mom. Everybody say hi to my mom, Kelly, in the chat, especially if you're on YouTube. So good to see my mama tuning in. We've got Dutch Canadian watching in the Netherlands, which is awesome. 23 Fresh is here. Jake's watching Down Under in Australia. God, you guys, I really need to work on my Australian accent. Joseph is watching, and Los Ravosa is tuning in from Europe, and many, many more. Over on Rumble, Heath is watching. We've got John watching. We've got the Getter Gang out in full force to start us out. Nitty Witty is here. Truth Found Here is watching. Scott is watching. Texas is here. The World is Like a Zoo, and TD and Locals has a ton of people in our chat. I love seeing you guys on other platforms jump over to Locals. We have some special content that only exists over there, one of which will be posted tonight, our weekly episode of our dating series, Outdated, breaking down culture's most prevalent lies about dating and relationships as told to my generation and replacing them with the truth. And you guys have a lot of exciting stuff that you get to do on Locals that's not present as a feature anywhere else that we do the stream. So if that sounds something interesting to you, please feel free to jump over to Locals, and we'll drop the link in our chat of where you can do that for our post-stream Q&A that we do every single day over on Locals as well. Again, you guys, if you're coming in just now, introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already hit that follow or subscribe button, please do so as well. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're talking about a bit of a controversial topic today when it comes to abortion. I will say up front, I don't care where you are coming from. I hope you stick around and participate in this conversation, because facilitating true dialogue about what it means to be pro-life, what the abortion industry actually stands for, and why I believe that this is the greatest human rights issue of our time, is one of those taboo subjects that for whatever reason, the powers that be, not just in America, but around the world, are absolutely hellbent we never talk to each other about. So I will be completely transparent with you guys up front where I am coming from. I am unapologetically pro-life. I believe that every single human being was created in the image of God, no matter where you come from, no matter what your race is, no matter what your gender is, no matter what language you grow up speaking or what nationality you are. Every single human being was created with a purpose, because you were put here for a reason, and the world would not be the same without you. And it is unbelievably disgusting to me that there are so many that can acknowledge the humanity of a preborn child and still take it upon themselves to end that innocent life because they are an inconvenience to them. I grew up really invested in the scientific world, as you guys know, and pursued my graduate degree in biomedical sciences after completing a pre-med curriculum in undergrad in college. And so from just a scientific perspective, I am unapologetically pro-life. There is a genetically unique human being that has never existed before and will never exist again, that is present at the moment of conception. every single time a child is conceived and will never exist again once, unfortunately, that child's life is taken away through the horrors of abortion. I also think it is perhaps the worst thing that we could possibly do and facilitate for women in crisis, women who find themselves in unexpected pregnancy situations, in situations of abuse or domestic violence, if they are a victim of incest, particularly if they're a victim of SA, which we have to be really careful talking about because our video will get taken down, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about. It is a really tragic, horrible reality, and I do not believe one bit that there is an ounce of good that we are giving to women who find themselves in these crisis situations by piling on more trauma, more pain, the chance to end their own life, because abortion does take the lives of moms as well as children in many, many unfortunate circumstances that rarely go reported. And frankly, I think it is one of the biggest brainwashing schemes in American history, by convincing you through the exact same tactics that were used in every single other genocide in the history of the world, that this is not a human being. They are not the same as you. They are a parasite. They're not a human as we would recognize them because they don't look fully formed yet or whatever. It's just a clump of cells. We keep having this exact same circular argument over and over and over again. And I think there's a really unique opportunity in America today to start to break through that lying narrative, through that false information and the misinformation, and bring truth to light and change so many, not just minds, but hearts on the issue of abortion. But we have to be willing to talk about it up front. So you might not agree with anything that I just said, but I encourage you to stick around through the end of the stream to just talk about it anyway and open your heart and your mind to where other people may be coming from and what other people are advocating for when it comes to truth and true human rights, protecting our most basic human right, the right to life, across the board for every single person created in the image of God. Suits, thank you so much for your donation in our super chat. You say, I'm currently being stalked by a crazy girl who is possessive and controlling. Yikes. I am so very sorry. We will circle back to talk about that towards the end of the stream, I promise. But in the meantime, I want to just start us out with this video that I was sent by my fiance. You guys know Brock. He is also unapologetically pro-life. He works in the conservative social media space as well for a different creator, running a social media account and series of accounts for another creator. We love Brock. He's great. So he sent me this video and I was just blown away. We are really nerdy in this relationship, in this future household, and we spend a lot of time talking about politics, about who's running for president, about what different campaigns are looking like right now, who's piquing our interest. And I am not going to talk one bit today, I'll say this right now, about different primary candidates for the Republican Party, not the purpose of today's conversation. But we were watching this video of Ron DeSantis being interviewed by the Today Show. And I've been really interested with how the media in general is approaching this DeSantis candidacy. Again, not weighing in on who I'm voting for a primary. I haven't even made that decision yet. But there seems to be this coordinated effort, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong or tell me if you're seeing this too. From my point of view, there seems to be this coordinated effort from legacy media and from mainstream media approaching Ron DeSantis, particularly on his litany of accomplishments here in the state of Florida as our governor, making Florida the most conservative state in the United States of America. And they're going like out of their way to almost call him a fascist, to say that he is worse than Hitler. I've seen a lot of that he's way more conservative than Trump ever was. And that's why everybody should be really afraid of him. And basically nothing that's being said in the media about Ron DeSantis or to his face in some of these interviews remotely is based in objective truth. So I've had a lot of fascination as this is unpacking and as this is happening in real time as we get closer to the primary debates happening in just a few weeks, which I'm hoping to attend. But it's just a bizarre situation. And one of the biggest topics that the media seems to be zooming in on when it comes to a DeSantis candidacy is that he is promising to be a pro-life president if he were elected to be president of the United States. And I think the average American voter isn't surprised by that information whatsoever, because Ron DeSantis has easily been one of the most pro-life governors in the state of Florida, but particularly around the country in our nation's history. In the last few months, he has gone out of his way to make it easier for Floridians to have a family. For example, they made all baby and childcare products like diapers and wipes and all of the essentials that you need when you have a baby tax-free in perpetuity in the state of Florida. You never have to pay sales tax on any of those products, which is unbelievably cool. And one of the little things that you don't think about that really adds up and makes it difficult for a family to afford having a child, when they passed monumental legislation in the state of Florida, taking the state's abortion ban from 15 weeks down to 6 weeks, basically making a heartbeat ban, if you're familiar with that, making it illegal to perform an abortion after a heartbeat can be detected on an ultrasound for a preborn child. Not only did they do that, which is great in and of itself, in my opinion, because you're acknowledging that is a human being with a beating heart. We can't just end the life of an innocent human being. He went out of his way to then take $25 million and invest it into federally qualified health centers or pro-life pregnancy centers across the state of Florida so that any woman who's experiencing financial difficulty but really needs prenatal care can go for free to get her prenatal care taken care of. And if you're not familiar with these pregnancy centers, they are absolutely phenomenal institutions. They do unbelievably cool work across the country. There are far, far more pregnancy centers than abortion centers in America, and you would really never know that because the media never wants you to focus on that. But there are about 600 Planned Parenthood abortion clinics left in the country, and there are over 3,000 pro-life pregnancy centers across the country that provide free prenatal care. They give you free diapers and baby clothes and cribs and all of the above that you might need supply-wise. They can help fundraise to pay your rent or your mortgage if you are experiencing some financial difficulty while you are waiting for your baby to be born. This is happening across the country, but here specifically in Florida, $25 million was invested into those pro-life pregnancy centers to help facilitate actual maternal health, actual women's health, rather than facilitating abortion and the end of women's health in many situations, because women do die from abortion procedures, and especially protecting the life of that child. So really, really cool. Those are just two examples, but he has gone out of his way to put his money where his mouth is when it comes to making it easier for people to have families, number one, and number two, protecting the most basic human right that is universally shared among us, the right to life for every single person in the state of Florida as much as humanly possible. Interestingly, when that bill was passed, creating the heartbeat ban here in the state of Florida, we call it a heartbeat bill in the pro-life community. When the heartbeat bill was passed in the state of Florida, the media freaked out. Like their brain just absolutely imploded collectively because they all share one collective brain, I'm convinced at this point. And they started saying that Florida was like living in a fascist state, that Florida was this insane upside down reality, that nobody had any basic human rights or right to healthcare, which is the exact opposite of what we did. We provided free healthcare, millions upon millions of dollars of which to Floridian citizens, and they seem to fail to remember that in fascist states, they are performing forced abortions on people rather than encouraging a child to be born. So really weird media narrative, but they also failed to mention that in that 6-week heartbeat bill here that became law in the state of Florida, Ron DeSantis also included every single exception that the left and the pro-abortion community really screams about all day, every day. So really, they had nothing to truly argue about if, in fact, they only want to protect abortion rights for when the life of the mother is in danger, when there is a fetal abnormality, which I also still think is really messed up, and we shouldn't be carving that out of the law, but that is currently where the law sits, where a child or somebody was a victim of rape, where a woman, a child was a victim of rape, or where they were a victim of incest. All of those things were carved out from the law in the state of Florida. So you can still obtain an abortion after 6 weeks if any of those things apply to you, and you can still obtain an abortion before 6 weeks if any circumstance applies to you. So you often hear the pro-abortion community like screaming, well, what about somebody who's been raped? What about this ambiguous 10-year-old that we really can't put a name to that was a victim of incest from her family member? Are you really going to make a 10-year-old carry this pregnancy to term and give birth and forced birth for all of these victims that are in horrible situations? No, in the state of Florida, all of those things are carved out, and we can argue all day long and have a conversation all day long whether or not that was the right decision to make in passing this bill. But I think it was a great step in the right direction, right? And created this opportunity for dialogue in unpacking that the pro-abortion community in America really isn't only trying to protect abortion in situations of rape, in situations of incest, in situations of fetal abnormality, or in situations where the life of the mother is threatened. And just by the way, as a biology lover, as someone with her degree in biomedical sciences, and very, very ingrained in the pro-life movement, there fundamentally is no such thing as life of the mother abortions. A good OBGYN would never abort a child if the life of the mother was truly in danger. In fact, that could cause substantially, exponentially more danger to whatever situation she's in and put her life at risk even more. So you would deliver the child alive, and you would do everything you can to keep both of those two patients alive if there ever is a situation where the life of the mother is at risk from a pregnancy, which is extremely rare. That very much never happens. But even if it does, a good doctor, a good OBGYN would never end the life of that child, because the process to do that in inducing a heart attack in that child, killing it essentially in the womb, dismembering that baby, and then delivering it that way is far more dangerous to the mom than just delivering her child alive and doing everything you can to keep that child alive. So total side note, but that is important to note in my opinion. So all of a sudden, the quiet part starts getting said out loud, right, in the last few years as these different states are passing heartbeat bills. Florida is one of them. Other states have passed their own version of this legislation, or even more extreme legislation protecting the right to life, which I think is really cool. North Dakota, for example, and Oklahoma are going way out of their way to protect the right to life, completely universally, no exceptions, no ifs, ands, and buts about it. Texas has come under fire in the last several years for a lot of the legislation that they have proposed and worked on. But across the board, after Roe v. Wade was overturned, we've kind of watched America turn into this checkerboard where some states seem to be protecting the right to life to the fullest extent humanly possible under law. And other states that would be more blue states or pro-abortion states want on-demand abortion all the time for whatever reason, up until the moment of pregnancy, no questions asked. And you're starting to see this polarization on the issue of abortion to like the most extreme poles of the conversation that you could possibly imagine on a state by state by state basis. So that brings me to this clip that Brock sent me, this video that Brock sent me, where Ron DeSantis, in his candidacy for president of the United States, was being interviewed by the Today Show, and they were specifically talking about his position as a potential pro-life president, and you will not believe what the Today Show said on the air about the pro-abortion politicians in America. Let's watch.
Would you veto any sort of federal bill that tries to put a nationwide ban in place?
So we will be a pro-life president, and we will support pro-life policies. I would not allow what a lot of the left wants to do, which is to override pro-life protections throughout the country, all the way up really until the moment of birth in some instances, which
we're going to pause right there for a second. That is what is being discussed and being advocated for on Capitol Hill literally right now as we speak. Regularly, left-wing politicians are introducing legislation to codify Roe v. Wade, to codify a federal right to an abortion. If you scroll through the President of the United States' Instagram account or Twitter account, I guess it's called X account now, you will see post after post after post after post. We will codify a woman's right to an abortion for any reason, on demand, whenever she wants it. That's what we are advocating for. Damned be your state laws, whatever your state laws are. We're doing this at the federal level to override everything else. He's saying that's wrong. That's really messed up, actually. And when you're legalizing abortion throughout the country, up until the moment of birth in some instances with some of these pieces of legislation, I personally think, Ron DeSantis said, that's infanticide. That is a fully formed child that, particularly with a partial birth abortion, you are delivering alive until their head almost comes out of the birth canal, and then you end their life, which is ending an innocent life. There's really no way to get around that conversation, no matter where you fall on the spectrum of calling yourself pro-life or pro-abortion. Watch what happens next.
I think is infanticide.
Well, actually, I got to push back on you on that, because that's a misrepresentation of what's happening.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But let's see how she tries to justify it.
I mean, that 1.3% of abortions happen at 21 weeks or higher. There's no
I haven't fact checked that, but we are going to in just a second together.
Right.
evidence of Democrats pushing for
But their
abortions
view
up
is
until
that all the way up into that, yet there should not be any legal protections.
there is
even
no
in the
indication
end.
of
Now, you're
Democrats
right,
pushing
you're
for that.
right.
Let's start that over, shall we? I'm just going to fast forward here a little bit. She said there is no indication, there is no evidence of anyone, any politician, particularly any Democrat, pushing for abortion up until the moment of birth. Not one. Not a single piece of evidence. And I'm honestly disappointed that Ron didn't go back and fight that a little bit, because when I heard this clip, I was baffled that she was able to get away with saying that on national television and nobody blinked an eye. That there is no evidence of a single politician, a single Democrat pushing for abortion up until the moment of birth. Are you kidding me?
Country all the way up really until the moment of birth in some instances, which I think is infanticide.
Well, actually, I got to push back on you on that, because that's a misrepresentation of what's happening. I mean, that 1.3% of abortions happen at 21 weeks or higher.
Right here.
There's no
right.
evidence of Democrats pushing for
But their
abortions
view
up
is
until
their view is that all the way up into that, yet there should not be any legal protections.
there is
even
no
in the
indication
end.
of
Now, you're right
Democrats
that
pushing
you're
for that.
right.
There is no indication of Democrats pushing for that. No indication. And by the way, only 1.3% of all abortions happen after 21 weeks of pregnancy. Well, let's do the math, shall we? Because right before Roe v. Wade was overturned, actually, I think we have even more recent data. So let's Google some things, shall we? I think this will be fun. Let's Google. We might chat GPT this later just for fun. How many abortions happened in the United States in 2021? That's probably the most recent year that we have. No, we might have to go back to 2020. That's okay. We can go back to 2020. From Guttmacher Institute data, which is, by the way, the research arm of Planned Parenthood. It's a very pro-abortion source. The president of the Guttmacher Institute, the founder of the Guttmacher Institute, was the vice president, I believe, of the American Eugenics Association. So that's fun. That's really interesting. Based on available state-level data, in 2021, 961,000 abortions took place in our country. Almost 1 million people in 2021. Horrifying. Absolutely heart-wrenching. But even if the Today Show wants to try to minimize how many of those were late-term abortions, let's just do the math, okay? 961,000 people times 1.3% is 12,500 innocent babies that were fully viable outside the womb. We've had children be born at 21 weeks and survive in America outside the womb. They are viable. And the age of viability gets younger and younger and younger and younger with each passing year, and with more advanced medical technology and understanding what we can do for an intervention perspective in the NICU when these children are born. 12,500 babies that were completely viable on their own were aborted, were killed, lost their life. Which everybody is saying that's not surprising at all, but that's horrifying. It's hard to wrap your head around. It is sickening, Rock. You're right. It's really hard to wrap your head around. And I apologize if I get a little emotional during this conversation, because I think it is really important to talk about. So 961,000, almost 1 million innocent people who are genetically unique, who will never exist again and have never existed before, who can feel pain starting earlier and earlier. The more our research unpacks it, right now they're saying about the 8th to 12th week of pregnancy, a baby can feel pain, who have heartbeats, who have unique little fingerprints, whose organs are fully formed almost right away during pregnancy, who have a nervous system, who have a unique sense of taste developed by what their mom is eating throughout their pregnancy, who feel the emotions of their mom, lost their life at the hands of the abortion industry, 12,500 of whom were past the age of viability. And if they were delivered instead of aborted by a good physician, would have lived, would have been a human being 2 years old right now, talking and learning their first words and crawling all over the floor, walking everywhere. Hard to wrap your head around. But the audacity of the Today Show to suggest that there is not a single politician, not one, not a single Democrat pushing for abortion up until the moment of birth through all 9 months of pregnancy on demand for whatever reason or lack thereof of a reason is the biggest, most bold-faced lie I have ever seen on national television. I have absolutely no idea how I certainly haven't seen. They might have issued a retraction, but I certainly haven't seen a retraction from the Today Show. And I, for one, would really like to demand one because I'm pretty sure it's important that journalism is based in objective truth. But I think that ship has sailed a long time ago in the United States of America. So I figured because the fact checkers aren't coming after that post, but they come after a lot of things, we should do the fact checking ourselves because unfortunately, I don't think a lot of these independent fact-checking organizations are going to hold the Today Show accountable the same way they hold small independent content creators accountable on social media. So in a post-Roe v. Wade world, America, we do have states, we do have politicians, we have our own president of the United States advocating for late-term abortion in any capacity possible for whatever reason possible through all 9 months of pregnancy. Axios put together a really interesting interactive map that I thought was a good way to illustrate what was really going on, and this was published in June of last year. So some of this is a bit outdated when it comes to the data. For example, Florida should look like Oklahoma and Texas now. North Dakota has an updated law since May 26th of last year. So this is kind of an outdated map, but I thought it was a good place for a starting point of this conversation, and it's just helpful to understand where we're going. So Axios put this together, how late in pregnancy each state allows abortions, and this was as of May 26th of last year. This map is a really helpful indication and illustration of what's happening all across the country. And if you look at the color wheel here, the darkest colors stop allowing abortion under law starting either right away at the moment of conception or through 6 weeks, which is those heartbeat bills that I was talking about. Oklahoma, Texas, we now know that Florida is a part of that. I'm pretty sure North Dakota falls into that situation now, and other states have followed suit in the last year or so. But several states are on we are not allowing abortion under any circumstances in our state, or if we do, it is extremely minimal, and it's only up until about 6 weeks of pregnancy when we can start detecting a heartbeat. About 16 states, and again, this is outdated data, so don't quote me on all of this, allow abortion in their state, and they stop it at about 20 to 22 weeks, which is typically what most scientific experts would believe is the age of viability, or would cite as the age of viability, which, as I just mentioned, is getting younger and younger and younger and younger as our medical technology improves, as we engage in more medical innovation, and just generally as life-saving techniques get better and better for premature babies in the NICU in hospitals all over the country. It is really common for babies to be born in the early 20-some weeks of pregnancy now and still survive. That's becoming more and more common, which is awesome and is really beautiful that we have the technology to save someone's life. Sadly, we are using alternate technology to end someone's life for the same reason, saying they are not a human being yet. They are just a clump of cells in that same window of time. Blows my mind how people don't connect the two dots together, which is really crazy. Then about 26 states, about half the country, halts abortion legally in their state from about 24 weeks to the age of viability. But again, the age of viability is a nebulous term, right? Like any doctor could tell you that the age of viability is different, which is a bit bizarre. And then 7 states have essentially no limit under law, no exceptions. Sorry, they have all of the exceptions because it is always legal. You don't need to provide a reason ever. You can have an abortion whenever you want, including partial birth abortion. And those states include New Jersey, Vermont, sadly, Alaska, Oregon, Colorado, where I grew up, New Mexico is one of the worst states for abortion in the country. In fact, the Satanic Temple is now getting referrals from the governor's office on where to go to get an abortion in the state of New Mexico. Absolutely insane stuff, because the Satanic Temple opened up their own abortion clinic in the state of New Mexico. Washington, D.C., I have visited the big Planned Parenthood abortion facility there many times when I used to live there and with Students for Life, and it is a horrifyingly sad place, but there is absolutely no limit for any reason for the right to an abortion throughout pregnancy in the District of Columbia. So that's just, a starting point to understand that at least 7 states have literally not a single restriction about any abortion regulations whatsoever. The Today Show. Hope that is helpful. But even states where you know that there might be restrictions, it's totally possible to obtain late-term abortions after that supposed cutoff under law. California being a really great example of that, with the passage of Proposition 1 that just happened last November and completely obliterated any sort of legal basis for the restrictions by creating all of these strange loopholes and updates to how the law functions, which I think is really interesting.
On the any sort of federal
on the California government's website, you can go to abortion.california.gov, which is lovely. They provide a whole web page called California Abortion Access, explaining the types of abortions that are offered for California residents. That in the state of California, you are entitled to either a medication abortion or an in-clinic procedure, also known as a surgical abortion. Your options can vary based on your pregnancy stage and the provider that you choose. The medication abortion means we're going to send you home and you deal with it on your own. We've talked about how unbelievably devastating that process is on the stream before. We don't have a lot of time to go into it today, but is so unbelievably sad. And we'll circle back a little bit towards that at the end of the stream. They say that medication abortions are, of course, still available in California. And here's how you can get it. You can go through telehealth. You don't even need to provide an ultrasound to prove that you're pregnant, which sounds super safe. Am I right? You can get at-home abortion pill options online just by ordering something online without even speaking to a physician whatsoever. Or you can work with different nonprofit organizations, etc. And then you can seek an in-clinic procedure if a medication abortion is not the option for you, also known as a surgical abortion. This is a common medical procedure. It shouldn't be. It is unbelievably dangerous. It puts the life of women at risk as well, and it shouldn't be common, but maybe in California it is. Done in a clinic or hospital. There are 2 main procedure options. Again, we don't have a lot of time to go through this today. I've talked about it a lot, but if you're confused about what those things mean, please send me an email or a message or go watch an old stream of ours. And they specifically say that for both of these options, this one, an aspiration abortion, is generally available from about conception through 14 to 16 weeks of pregnancy. And a dilation abortion is if it's been more than 16 weeks since the first day of your last period. So horrifying, makes me nauseous to even talk about, but California has become one of the safe haven states for abortion in the country, wanting to guarantee abortion rights under law in whatever way that they possibly could, with this misnomer that you somehow do have a constitutional right to an abortion. Would love for somebody to point that out to me in the United States Constitution, and I'm pretty sure the experts of constitutional law, the Supreme Court of the United States, just definitively told us that there is no such thing as a constitutional right to an abortion, but that doesn't matter to people in the state of California. In November, they voted to guarantee abortion rights in their state constitution. It was a ballot measure in the last election called Proposition 1. And there's a lot of controversy about what Proposition 1 actually did. Pro-abortion lawyers are saying, well, it just solidified that you have the right, but it didn't take away those late-term protections where you weren't supposed to have a late-term abortion. That's still prohibited in California. Pro-life lawyers are all saying that Proposition 1 went out of their way to essentially never deny or interfere with an individual's reproductive freedom whatsoever. Lovely. And they call it the opposition campaign from anti-abortion groups has argued that the measure isn't necessary to protect abortion rights and that it would remove all abortion restrictions, essentially that is what it did. So even if it doesn't say in state law that states like California would allow you to have a partial birth abortion or a late term abortion, there are these nebulous nonprofit organizations that are helping people to obtain late-term abortions. This is just one of them. CARE, Clinics for Abortion and Reproductive Excellence, have a whole landing page on their website for safe and compassionate abortion care. Late-term abortion in California. Here's a button to schedule an appointment. When abortion becomes the choice you have to make in California, we believe you deserve the very best. After 27 weeks, well beyond the age of fetal viability, which again, I'm like literally nauseous talking about this, we can help you obtain an induction procedure like inducing for labor 25, 27 weeks and up in your child's gestational age, which is normally a 3-day procedure. 3 days, which is not safe for any woman, certainly not safe for the child whose life they are ending. And they explain it to you loud and clear on their website how they're going to help you do this in the state of California. This is normally a 3-day procedure depending on your medical history. First, an ultrasound will be done. This is done by passing a microphone-like instrument over your abdomen, which measures the size of your pregnancy. The final decision as to whether the induction can be done will depend on your medical history, physical exam, lab tests, and the doctor's evaluation. On the first day, the cervix is slowly opened with plastic or metal rods, each one slightly bigger than the last. When the cervix is as open as possible, small sponges that take up water from your body will be placed in your cervix. They swell and continue to open the cervix overnight. The next morning, those sponges are removed and new ones are replaced in there. This is repeated as needed until the cervix is adequately open. The induction abortion ends with the start of labor and delivery of a stillborn child. So while your child is still in the womb, they end their life. And typically induction abortions involve delivering the child partially through the birth canal naturally while the baby is alive and then ending their life as they are exiting the birth canal, which is very hard to talk about. So even in states where it is illegal to obtain a late-term abortion, it absolutely is happening. And in those states where I showed you on the map where there is absolutely no restrictions whatsoever, like Colorado, where I grew up, updated since this map was last created, in states like Maryland, people are going out of their way to create safe havens for abortion for any reason at any time, no matter what circumstance you are in, maybe even through all 9 months of pregnancy and as your child is being naturally delivered. Maryland's top Democrats said in February of this year that they want to make a safe haven for abortion, joining a wave of blue states escalating efforts to protect patients, providers, and access to the procedure. We are going to make sure that Maryland is a safe haven for abortion, rights, as long as I am the governor of this state, said the, oh, I'm sorry, Today Show, Democrat governor of the state of Maryland, Wes Moore. He joined the years-long quest of the House Speaker of their state House of Representatives, Adrian Jones, to have voters enshrine abortion rights in the state constitution, fortifying protections in state law as federal protections erode. The effort, stalled in years past, took on new urgency after the Supreme Court relegated abortion policy back to the states, and at least a dozen states, including neighboring West Virginia, essentially banned the procedure. The push for more abortion protection in Maryland arrives just as Democrats have expanded their supermajorities in Annapolis. And what are the Democrats saying in Annapolis? Reproductive care must be enshrined in our Constitution so that it could never be up for debate, ever, or used as a bargaining chip. It doesn't matter what Texas or West Virginia or any other state does. They will never dictate what Maryland does. They will never dictate the rights of Marylanders. The world has changed since federal protections under Roe v. Wade were overturned by the Supreme Court last summer. In a post-Roe world, Maryland has a responsibility to lead. Democrat-led states. Shocking. I wonder if the Today Show reads the frickin' Washington Post, because I think this could be helpful information for them, particularly on the West Coast and in the Northeast, have enacted dozens of measures to enhance abortion protections in recent months, a counterpunch to the wave of anti-abortion laws that followed the Supreme Court's Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization decision. Dobbs v. Jackson was huge, by the way, and that essentially overturned Roe v. Wade. So if you haven't done a lot of research into that, or you're not from the United States. That's all Supreme Court law, constitutional law. It's a little in the weeds and a little tricky, but I think you generally probably can understand what's going on. According to the Guttmacher Institute, who did I just tell you they were associated with? Planned Parenthood, an abortion rights think tank. States enacted 77 abortion protections in 2022. The highest number ever passed in 1 year by who? The Today Show? The Democrat Party. Abortion rights activists are tracking constitutional amendment efforts in a dozen states. In Maryland, abortion rights have broad support. An October 2021 poll found that 88% of residents said abortion should remain legal, though half of those people believe there should be some limits to the procedure. Their politicians don't. California was an early leader in fortifying abortion rights last year, including requiring college campuses to provide birth control and forbidding tech companies from responding to subpoenas seeking data related to out-of-state prosecutions for abortion, etc., etc., etc. So that's happening in Maryland. NPR also reported on this last fall in Maryland, that an all-trimester abortion clinic was preparing to open in Maryland, that there are a few of these opening across the country. This is really, really crazy to talk about. While it opened sometime after Labor Day last fall, they were reporting, Partners in Abortion Care will be a handful of clinics in the United States that offer abortions into the third trimester. In this case, up to 34 weeks of gestation. For the record, a full-term pregnancy typically lasts 40 weeks, and women regularly go into natural labor within that 34 to 40 weeks time period. So not only are these states going out of their way to advocate for late-term abortion, they are going out of their way to enshrine late-term abortion in any capacity that they possibly can by opening late-term abortion facilities, by enshrining no restrictions abortion in state constitutions and in state codes across the country, in states like Maryland, California, Colorado, where I grew up, Vermont, Washington, D.C., etc., and creating a media narrative and a social media narrative that continues to normalize abortion through any circumstance for whatever reason or lack thereof in any capacity possible. And that's kind of what I want to segue into as we move forward, because it's not enough for me to just fact check what the Today Show had to say. That's shocking enough in and of itself that they've never issued a retraction on this that I've seen. It's possible that they've put it out there, but I certainly haven't seen a retraction on this. It's insane to me that nobody wanted to counter what they were saying on the air, and I wish Governor DeSantis would have done that, but I understand it's really pressed for time in a lot of those interviews. I personally would have stopped them in their tracks and said, "Are you serious? Are you freaking kidding me? Do you know anything about politics? Are you remotely a journalist? Like, this is ridiculous." And issued example after example after example after example if I was in that interview. But where I think this is more of an important conversation and where we can continue taking this for the latter half of the stream is this. Abortion cannot just be something that we fight on a legal basis. It has to be something that we fight on a cultural basis. And I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat say, I used to be pro-abortion until XYZ. Brenda said, I used to be pro-abortion until I watched the movie Unplanned, which is about my friend Abby Johnson. She's an unbelievable, amazing woman who used to be the #1 Planned Parenthood clinic director in the country, was extremely pro-abortion, worked for the largest abortion provider on the face of the planet, and really never knew what was happening until she had to go in and assist with a procedure several years into her career with Planned Parenthood. She wrote a book about it. It later was turned into a movie. And I hear stuff like this all the time. Lucinda says, I used to be pro-abortion until I saw Isabel's Students for Life stuff, which is so unbelievably powerful, Lucinda. I'm going to start crying that, like, you saw something on social media, you saw a speech that somebody gave, and all of a sudden you had the opportunity to stop, to hold your breath for a minute, and to ask yourself, wow, did I know that? What do I really believe? Do I even understand what that means when I say that I'm pro-choice or pro-women's health care? What is an abortion procedure? Have I ever even understood what an abortion procedure is? And every single day that I make these posts on social media, that I go travel to these college campuses, as you guys know, I joined my friend Kristen Hawkins on her speaking tour this last spring and traveled the country speaking to college students about abortion and why the pro-abortion lobby is lying to you about so many things, not even just abortion, birth control, men being pregnant, the whole nine. But I see this conversion that's happening in the hearts and minds of my generation every single day. It's why we call Gen Z the pro-life generation and the post-Roe generation, because there's a unique window of time happening culturally right now where it's not enough to just make abortion illegal and to protect the legal right, the legal human protection for human rights and our right to life. That's happening in so many state legislatures. Ideally, at some point will happen at the federal level, is happening in other countries as well. This debate is rolling out in real time. But it's not enough to just do that. We also have to make abortion unthinkable. And legally, it's really difficult to change someone's heart about these subjects. Debating on a debate stage or running for president of the United States or passing legislation or door knocking is a really valiant, important effort. And I don't want to diminish that in the slightest, but it's typically not enough to change someone's heart on a really controversial, stigma'd, tabooed topic like the topic of abortion. And I often get asked, why do I talk about this on social media? Why do I dedicate live streams to this? It's not a very popular thing to say. You're probably going to lose followers for talking about this. You're going to make people really upset. I do this because every single time I post one of these videos, it gives people on social media, where my generation spends most of our time, largely on TikTok, an opportunity to think about the issue differently. And I get really frustrated when many people in the political space are saying it's a waste of time for us to host conversations about this, for us to do podcasts about this or live streams, to make videos on Instagram Reels or TikTok. Like, that's not going to actually accomplish anything. I would argue completely to the contrary. It accomplishes mountains more, infinitely more than any singular piece of legislation ever could, than any presidential debate ever could. Maze Page, thank you so much for your donation in our super chat. I really appreciate it. And for every time I post one of these videos, I want you to know that there are 100 to 1,000 and maybe even more videos being posted that are specifically creating this narrative culturally that abortion is not just okay. Abortion is not just something that should be legal. Abortion is beautiful, or abortion is special, or abortion is life-saving. It's something that we need to celebrate. We need to shout our abortion. We need to make cakes for our abortion and throw abortion showers and get abortion tattoos, all of which are real posts that I've seen on social media. And lately I've noticed this shift in the pro-abortion content that I'm seeing on TikTok in particular. It's not this like raunchy, rah, free the nipple feminism that is typically associated with pro-abortion posts on social media. It's this really soft, feminine, relatable conversation that almost makes you feel like, oh, that's totally normal. I would totally be okay with that if that happened to me, or I could totally relate to a video like this. And I think it's really, really damaging. So I want to show you a few of these examples and then talk about what we can do to keep bringing truth in love, which is the most important part of speaking the truth on this issue, to the members of my generation around the entire world and those who really need to hear it next.
Would you veto?
On the wrong thing, you guys. Sorry. Here is just one example. How my day went having an abortion. I actually need to turn this down so that we don't get copyrighted. How my day went having an abortion. I tried to shower, but my dog wouldn't leave me alone. I'm getting nervous driving to my appointment. Paperwork. I have to fill out paperwork. That's going inside me for the ultrasound. Amazingly, this abortion clinic showed this girl her ultrasound, which is rarely done. Most Planned Parenthood clinics refuse to show you the ultrasound because they don't want you to see your baby on the screen. So they showed her the ultrasound. It's way smaller than I thought. That's her baby. She's looking at her baby on the screen, which if this was the alternate appointment, if she was going to see an OBGYN, they would be rejoicing that she could see her baby in an ultrasound instead of pointing out how small it was. Conscious sedation meds. It didn't hurt at all. I'm just waiting for the meds to wear off. I feel completely normal. I'm just slightly loopy as her boyfriend gives her a kiss on the cheek. Her boyfriend's giving her a foot rub and taking care of her and wanting to normalize that as much as possible with this soft, sweet, relatable music that anybody could feel compassion for or have their heart moved by.
Take a trip with me on my first abortion at home. I have my ibuprofen.
And this is what happens when you do this at home. This girl's comment or her caption on this video on TikTok was saying that pro-lifers have no idea what they're talking about when they're talking about abortions that are happening at home. Again, you hear classical music. It's this soft, feminine, relatable energy. She's speaking very softly. She's almost whispering. It's something that feels normal. She says, I have ibuprofen in my bed, which is something that we all take. So you immediately feel a sense of connection
Motion
there.
sickness relief,
Motion sickness.
lots and lots of water, and Maxi Pads lifesaver. So first of all, I start off with this list and schedule of what I'm going to be doing. The first thing is already checked off because
It's already checked off, and she's going to tell you because they actually make you, Planned Parenthood forces you to swallow the first pill. A medication abortion involves 2 pills. They force you to swallow the first pill while you are in their office, and they watch you do it. And then they send you home with the second one to take the next day. This is a really traumatic way to experience an abortion. Not that any way to experience an abortion isn't traumatic, but these girls do not have physician supervision. Many times they end up hemorrhaging in their bathroom. Women have died very often, actually, a lot more often than you realize, from bleeding out in their house, and they're afraid to seek emergency medical care because they don't really know what's going on. And the really shocking reality of at-home abortions is that you pass your child. So your child passes away in your womb and you deliver that child, even though it looks a little bit different than what labor can look like in the hospital. And you're told that you should flush your child down the toilet or flush your child down the bathroom drain. So you have to acknowledge that and face that all alone without a doctor. It's a really dangerous aspect of environmental waste because that waste ends up getting flushed down the toilet or flushed into our water system. And that's human tissue, blood, human cells, and there are aspects of the medication specifically that contain metabolites that don't break down after it's passed through the woman. So it enters our water system, our wastewater, and it's theoretically, we don't have much data to be talking about this yet, but we're encouraging the FDA and the EPA to do a lot more data about this. Theoretically, is poisoning our water supply, is poisoning our ground, soil, is poisoning animal life and plant life. Really, really, really scary stuff. But yeah, as she mentions, you have to take that first one in the office.
that pill was taken at the clinic, so all good. Before I start, I eat, I take my motion sickness, at least one because I didn't really like it, my ibuprofen, and I check off the things that I take.
It's just a checklist. It's a checklist with classical music and ramen, which we've all eaten, right? It's something that is so common. It's something that's relatable.
Boom, and here we go. There's going to be 4 pills. Now, you are not going to swallow them one at a time. You're going to place 2 of them on each side of your cheeks, between your gums and your cheeks, called the buccal area, and leave them in for 30 minutes. Don't drink water.
This feels like a vlog, like a travel vlog almost.
Gonna feel weird, but you know, whatever. 30 minutes have passed. Here I am swishing down the rest of it and going to the bathroom to put in my pads. Here I am taking my second dose of anti-nausea pills.
Because you're about to throw up, which is not normal and or healthy.
I hate being nauseous. It's the worst thing ever.
Which is not baseline normal. You being nauseous is a problem.
10 minutes have passed. I'm in a little bit of pain. Here is 20 minutes and I am really starting to feel it.
But she made like a vlog about it to make it seem normal that she's in debilitating pain in labor with her child, essentially.
And after that, I started passing a lot of blood clots, which is very expected. They were huge. At this point, it's 30 minutes past, and I'm in so much pain, I am just laying down. After that,
I'm in so much pain, I have to lay down. Like, I can't even function as a normal human being. Why would you post this is my question, but I know the answer. It's to try to normalize this, but really crazy stuff. Dutch Canadian, thank you so much for your donation. I appreciate it.
that passed, I ordered some Wendy's. You know, that shit hit.
Oh, we love Wendy's. That shit hits. What are we doing?
Here is a little, I guess, graph of how much you should be bleeding or should be expected to bleed. Now, you're supposed to take the second dose of your abortion pills 4 hours after. I missed it by 2 hours, but it's all good. At this point, the bathroom was my home, and this is me.
She had to sit on the toilet. The bathroom is my home. Because she was bleeding so much and passing her child.
The morning after. The pain was unbearable last night, but
How is this normal? The pain was unbearable last night? Are you serious?
I made it, and I'm okay.
But I made it and I'm okay. One more for you. I saw this one. I gotta turn the music down. It's that I know you hate me. Now my life is sweet like cinnamon song that's super viral on TikTok. I saw this one a few weeks ago and the comments are like literally just shocking. It made me nauseous to read the comments of this video. It's a young mom talking about how great her life is. And she's holding her 2 babies, just getting out of the bath. Beautiful family, absolutely stunning family. And the text says, here's your reminder that it wouldn't have been possible without the abortion. Me being happy with my little adorable children wouldn't have been possible without the abortion. And in her caption of her video, she goes out of her way to explain, I was not in a financial place to have an abortion. I didn't know how I was going to be able to provide for my family. And if I hadn't gotten that abortion now, I wouldn't have been a good mom for the kids that I'm holding in my arms today. I started crying when I watched that video a few weeks ago. And it's hard to think about, but I can't imagine as a mom holding your babies in your arms and thinking about the baby that isn't there. The baby that could have been there as a part of your family, but you made the decision for that baby not to be there. I could not imagine what that looks like to carry that feeling around all the time. But as I mentioned, culturally, we've created this emotionally numb stance generationally towards abortion where it's not even something that we feel neutral about anymore. We're actually like celebrating it now, and we're making vlogs about it, and we're like shouting our abortion from the rooftops because that's what empowerment is supposed to look like. And what nobody wants to talk about is behind closed doors, these women are really hurting. I would venture so far as to assume the women that are posting these videos are really, really hurting, and they're posting these videos probably to overcompensate for whatever feeling they are trying to trap down and shove down in their body. I don't know these women. I wish them the best, and I'm praying for them. But it is unbelievably devastating to know that the statistical reality for women who have sought abortion in the past is devastating. And I said at the very beginning of the stream when I was explaining why I was unapologetically pro-life, I will never support adding more trauma to a woman that finds herself in a situation of crisis. America, interestingly, does not have a national mandatory reporting law on abortion. So it's really difficult for us to understand who is seeking abortions for what reason. If women pass away as a result of an abortion, we don't have to report those things in America. We don't have to report when women are sent to the hospital because they are hemorrhaging in their house, or when they're picked up from a surgical abortion at a Planned Parenthood clinic. We have none of that information, none of that data, because nobody wants to ask that question and put those numbers on paper in a country where in 2021, almost 1 million children were killed at the hands of the abortion industry. That's 1 million women almost who are victims just as much as their children of this industry that is lying to them and telling them that this is empowering, that this is going to help them, that this is going to solve all of their problems, but in reality is really destroying the foundation of their life. Countries that do have a national mandatory reporting law on abortion, largely in Europe, so I credit Europe for having the right reporting laws at the very least, show that there is a 6 times higher likelihood of women who obtained an abortion of later committing suicide in her life, of taking her own life, rather than women who gave birth to their children. There are massive statistical correlations to increased clinical anxiety, depression, other mental health disorders, and certainly of guilt associated with abortion later on in life. And I just feel for these women that are being lied to so systematically, but we've set it up culturally in America where that lie has become the truth. Most students, when they are first taught sexual education in the public school system, are taught by, shockingly, Planned Parenthood in the United States of America today, because Planned Parenthood creates and drafts most of the sex ed curriculum that goes into the public school system. Obviously, Planned Parenthood being a business, being someone who literally profits from the abortion industry, has a vested interest in creating new customers out of every new class in the public school system that goes through sex ed. So of course it's normalized that you will just go to Planned Parenthood if something bad happens when you are inevitably sexually active. And school districts like the Chicago public school system is handing a condom to a 10-year-old in every single public school classroom. They started doing that a few years ago. So you're subconsciously normalizing the idea of being sexually active earlier and earlier and earlier, while also planting the seed in their mind, if something bad happens, always go to Planned Parenthood. Of course, we've seen several investigative journalism projects exposing Planned Parenthood for refusing to report sexual abuse, for refusing to report human trafficking, for not telling parents when children are obtaining abortions medically and just sending them home anyway. So parents don't even know that their daughters are struggling with this in their own home, in their own bathroom, which is so hard to wrap your head around, but is culturally true today. And after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, there has been this seismic shift away from, well, abortion is a necessity that we want to keep safe, legal, and rare, which was the talking point of the abortion lobby in America for so long, to now celebrating abortion as a beautiful thing, as a freeing thing, as something we should be proud of, as something that we should vlog and post on our social media. And rather than being this loud, rah, 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 go to the rallies approach, I'm seeing more and more and more of these softer, feminine, relatable, classical music oriented videos that seem to normalize this to a level I've never before seen from a cultural perspective and from a media perspective. And it's disgusting, it's sick, it's delusional, as all of you guys are saying in the chat. But more than all of that, it's heartbreaking. It's sad. And we deserve a lot better. Women deserve infinitely better than these lies. Obviously, children deserve the opportunity to live, but deserve infinitely better than these lies. Fathers deserve infinitely better than these lies. And the more we continue to feel morally on the fence about these issues, the more it is going to continue happening, to the point that entire generations will be wiped off the map. And that sounds so hyperbolic, but the truth is that's really the direction and the trajectory that we're going in. 1/3 of my generation, of Gen Z, is not here today in America because of abortion alone. 1/3. And when I think about that statistic, I think about the presidents, the priests, the CEOs, the inventors, the doctors, the teachers, the moms and dads and husbands and wives that never got an opportunity to be here, that could have made our world a far better, a far more tolerant, a far kinder, and a far more truthful place. But they never got the opportunity to be here. Luckily, we are starting to see the states that are outlawing abortion, massive decreases in the frequency of abortion procedures. States like Texas and Florida have seen thousands upon thousands of lives saved, which is incredible and exactly the direction that we need to be going in legally. But culturally, the young women of my generation are trending more liberal, more leftist and authoritarian, and more pro-abortion with every passing year. And it's hard to imagine why, being sarcastic, of course, when they're being taught sex ed by Planned Parenthood, when they're being told the only way to support women is to be pro-abortion, when they're being told they are misogynistic or promote a rape culture or don't care about health and women are going to literally die if they don't support abortion, and when their entire social media feeds are fed with videos like the ones that I just showed you. If we are unwilling to facilitate this dialogue, if we are unwilling to ask the hard questions, to have the tough conversations, to encourage young women to think with compassion, true compassion, and logically about these situations, it's going to be a whole lot more than 1/3 of the next generation that doesn't have the luxury of being here because of the lies of the abortion industry. And that conversation has to start with each and every one of us. Some of you might still feel on the fence about how you feel about abortion, about being pro-life or pro-choice or pro-abortion or whatever. We have a zillion different labels for all of this. But I want to ask you this as we leave the stream today and we transition into our Q&A over on Locals. If you can think for yourself and look in the mirror and say, I am the type of person that would have stood up against those trying to violate Black civil rights in the 1960s. I am the type of person that would have stood up for the rights of Jews during the Holocaust being shipped off to concentration camps. I am the type of person that would have drawn attention and done something during the Rwandan genocide when nobody wanted to talk about what was happening and brother turned against brother in families nationwide. I am the type of person that believes in science, real science, I can see a heart beating on a 3D ultrasound and see my baby moving around in the womb. That is a human being, not a clump of cells. If you are the type of person that wants more for women than a 6 times higher likelihood of suicide, if you are the type of person that doesn't want women to struggle with anxiety, depression, and other mental health disorders, if you are the type of person that believes in equality, in human rights, and in protection of the most vulnerable people in society, there is no other alternative than to be pro-life in 2023 America. And that might be shocking to hear. That might be difficult to hear. But there's no opportunity for moral ambiguity anymore, because contrary to what the Today Show is trying to get you to believe, those supporting abortion in 2023 want and are advocating for and are passing under law abortion on demand through all 9 months of pregnancy for any reason or lack thereof, even through partial birth. And sadly, some laws in some states, like Maryland, are so ambiguous that theoretically you could kill your child after they are born. You could abort your child after they are born. If you're uncomfortable with infanticide, which you should be, any person should be uncomfortable with that, you cannot support the abortion movement of 2023. It's just not logistically possible. If you want to be truly pro-woman, you cannot support the abortion industry of 2023. You can't. It might not look as cute on your Instagram feed if you go to the March for Life versus the Women's March, although I think it looks a lot cuter. We take great pictures of the March for Life. You might not get as many brownie points from your college professor. You might have some friends say that you're just not the person I thought you were. I've been there. I have been there. I've lost many people in my life for being more outspoken about this subject that I was dear friends with. But I looked in the mirror and thought to myself, I know what I feel about this. I have an obligation to say something. And if I remain morally neutral about this, who knows how many people aren't going to be here tomorrow. I think it's time that we all start asking ourselves that question, because I'm sick and tired of being told from holier than thou, high and mighty news anchors and Instagram influencers and the Planned Parenthoods of the world that I am a misogynistic, anti-woman bigot. That women are going to literally die because of me. When in reality, women are literally dying because of them. And they can't even define what a woman is. Truth matters. In this case, truth saves lives, quite literally. Millions of them. So it's time to start asking yourself what you are comfortable letting happen while you have an opportunity to speak up. Or if you remain morally ambiguous about this, why you are still on the fence. Because I truly believe within this generation, there's going to be some sort of reckoning for the devastating loss of human life. I would argue genocide, because it's killing people based on an external characteristic, their location in the womb and or size. We're going to have to answer for that, either in this lifetime or in the next. And I, for one, can't be silent during the single greatest human rights issue of our time, particularly when the media lies to our face about it. All day, every day. It's time to speak up. And you don't need a live stream to do it. You don't need to go on television to do it. You don't need to write a book about it. But you can tell the truth in whatever capacity you can in your own life as well. Tough stream, but needs to be said all the time. I hope you guys learned something new today. Namely, don't watch the Today Show because they have no idea what they are talking about. We have a new ad read today, which is exciting, and want to thank MasterTech Mobile RV for sponsoring this stream. Love what they are doing. They are the premier mobile repair provider for your adventure vehicles, specifically in the Colorado Front Range area and in southern Utah. They are expanding soon, so if you are not in that area, It might not apply to you yet, but it is coming to you very soon. MasterTech Mobile RV provides top-notch maintenance and repair services, and they also provide a unique selection of high-quality parts and accessories for your RVs and ATVs and adventure vehicles and all of it. If you need help with appliances, electrical, plumbing, inspections, generators, solar, etc., they can help you with all of that. They will help you turn your RV into the most reliable adventure equipment out there, perfect for any road trip. And the best part is they actually come to you. You don't need to drop your RV or adventure vehicle off with them. They will come to your house. Their certified technicians offer full mobile services so that you don't have to lug your RV into a shop or into a dealer. They're also on site this week for the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, which is awesome. Give them a holler if you need any help while you're there. Dropping a link right now in the live chat if you are ever looking for somebody to help you with RV repairs, and they will come to you. I love seeing RVing and adventure vehicles take off in a post-COVID America, by the way. It is really cool to see our generation, especially, live out of vans and do our thing and see all the national parks. It is awesome, and I was grown up. I always grew up that way. I was raised that way. We went on all of our family vacations, drive-in road trips through the national parks, so it's really fun to see that taking on steam and other people embracing that as well. These guys are awesome. They are top of the line, and thank you so much to sponsoring our stream today. Definitely check them out if you are in Utah or Colorado. Everybody else, do me a huge favor as we are ending this important, controversial, but important stream today. Hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever platform you are watching on right now. It means the world to me as we continue to grow this channel. I would love to invite you to come join us for our post-stream Q&A and hang out over on Locals. You are all invited to participate, and I'm dropping the link right now for how you can do that in our live chat. As I mentioned earlier, we have a new episode of our series that exists only over on Locals called Outdated tonight on dating and relationships. It's going to be a really good one. And a new episode of our faith-based series over there called Domus on Thursday. Again, those are only posted on Locals, and would love to have you guys join us for all of the fun over there. It is much more community-oriented. We go a lot more back and forth and get to know each other quite a bit intimately, which is really fun over on Locals, and would love to see you guys do that as well. We are back for the stream tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern, and I love you guys so very much. YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, and Getter. We will see you tomorrow. Locals, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.